Shakespeare. But let's go ahead and dive into one battle after another because this is a bit of a clusterfuck of a movie. I can think of no other movie that could better advertise Trump derangement syndrome than this. And I would even say, when it comes to movies with a strong political message, and make no mistake, this is a movie that very much wants you to think a certain way politically. It kind of sacrifices everything along the way in order to let you know, don't trust the man is bad. Oh, and fuck the police. I should also note that at the time of recording, by the way, the United States has gone into Venezuela, and Nicolas Maduro has.
Oh my gosh, that's true. Okay, we're not here to talk about politics, Luca. Yes, we got a lot of things going on.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is because I watched this movie last night, and what we're about to discuss in this movie would seem almost to coincide with what's going on in South America. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But yeah, Lee, will you stop moaning, for God's sake? I had to watch this movie, as you, and I moaned less than you did. And I'll even tell you this: I unwound by watching Avengers Endgame. That kind of put me back in the right frame of mind. So
I watched this 3 times. 3 times. Yes, well, I'm sorry. Yes, let me not bemoan the point anymore.
I mean, hey, listen, listen. I mean, you chose to do this to yourself, man. I mean, it's not my fault that you're a bit of a sadomasochist.
Actually, no, it's more of the issue is it's not that I decided to impose stuff or that we did, right? It's because it's the front runner, right, for Best Picture that you have to watch it, right? Like you can't be the movie pope, right, and talk about movies and not talk about what's allegedly the Best Picture. And well, we got something here, so let's go ahead and start, right? Because this is we got some things to unpack. Right?
Before we dive in, because remember, because last year, boys and girls, we did a review of Emilia Perez, which
I forgot about that.
Yeah, which if you haven't checked out that review, it's in the playlist for season 4, or season 3. I forget, but at that time, you and I had a very in-depth discussion about how basically that movie was, was Oscar baiting, because it was basically checking off all the items on the list of what's going to get the Academy's attention. And as I'm watching one battle after another, I can't help but think, is this following the same playbook as Emilia Perez?
Well, I mean, in a different form, sure, right? There's
but the MO is kind of the same.
Of course, right? Yeah.
A few moments later.
I don't. The ending to me felt so totally unearned. I don't know anyone that could actually look at this and be like, "Oh, that was really heartwarming," because we know, as you've pointed out, as we've talked a lot, right? Perfidia doesn't care about anything other than herself, right? So trying to have this nice cathartic moment at the end feels totally unearned, and it's not even just. I don't even know how you can justify it, right? It's unjustifiable for everything that we've seen.
What the heck was that?
And that's really how the movie ends. And I don't even know where to begin with this, Luca. I really don't. So this film, right? Once again, right? Currently the front runner, as far as I could tell, for Best Picture, right? And the whole thing was a mess from beginning to end for me, right? The first 30 minutes we spent talking about, or we focus on Perfidia and how much of a piece of shit human that she is, right? Which, hey, fine, right? We all need to, create a narcissist, or, she played that role well, right? I definitely believe that she was a piece of shit. So did that well, right? And then after the 30 minutes, it's just like, hey, cool, we're going to just kind of forget about Perfidia, and we're just going to have a story now focusing on the daughter, right? There's a whole bunch of weird hijinks that happen with Bob, which I guess is the comedy angle that's supposed to be happening with this, as he's trying to get there. All the while, you got, Lockjaw trying to, get this paternity test done, and absolutely nothing about this was enjoyable for me. I look back at it, right, and I watched this film twice, and I just don't really have anything super positive to say. I will say this, right? Acting, super good. Thought the acting was great. Right? I absolutely think the acting was the strong point of this. For some of these characters like Benicio del Toro that wasn't in it for a whole lot of time, thought they did good, right? Leo, great actor, able to do this stuff. And really, to me, Sean Penn was the one that stuck out as the colonel, Lockjaw, as kind of like being, I don't want to say the high point because he's obviously a giant piece of shit too. But at least the acting part was on point, right? So you have all this happening, but the story is just an utter mess that really doesn't feel like it did anything good. It feels like it focused on characters that just dip away. They try to show this emotional moments about her finding out about Willa finding out about the mom, but it doesn't really make any sense because we never see her interact with her mom, so we don't know anything about how she feels about it. All in all, we're just trying to see, we're trying to see Bob reunite with her. And now, granted, I will say, I do feel like Bob wants his daughter to be safe, right? Like, we've seen, in the flashbacks, we know that he cared about the daughter, or, he wanted to, protect her, and he wanted to start a family and everything. So we kind of know at least a little bit about Bob, what he wants to do, and we know he wants to find her. But really, that's about it. And it feels so hollow all the way through because we as the audience, just because it's a father and daughter trying to get together, doesn't just automatically make it a strong story or something that we're supposed to be invested in. And as I just went through this, I maybe had some kind of laughs at a few parts, right? I was like, oh, that's kind of amusing, or hey, this is really absurd. So I kind of like got a grin at like, oh, this is just fucking crazy. Hey, whatever, we'll just go with it. And as we got to the very end, I'm just like, God, I don't know what I watched. And then to have the story try to be like this nice emotional send-off of, the mom's gonna eventually show up. And I'm like, no, fuck you, movie. You did not deserve that. Don't you dare try to make it sound like the mom's gonna eventually show up and this is supposed to be some heartwarming moment, right? It has not earned that in the slightest.
Ow! Oh, for shit's sake already.
At least he's not entirely making the French 75 look entirely heroic. Like, he's making them look just as bad as everybody else. Because, I mean, seriously, like, any organization that thinks it's okay to like walk into a bank and shoot up the place and kill somebody, yeah, these are people that you're not really gonna want to root for at all. Plus, I do have an issue with the whole time frame situation, because they said, they jumped 15 or 16 years after the first 30 minutes, and I'm like, well, is it set in 2006 or is it set in 2016? What exactly is going on here?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that because
it's gotta be. I mean, because think about it, like if they were trying to make a statement about the current political situation, they would at least want to set it around 2014 to 2016, because that would give Willa enough time to grow up and be her current age, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's like, well, like, are you like you're clearly addressing current events. Let's be honest here, because what happens in the first 10 minutes of the movie, that's clearly a dig at what's going on right now, right? But then you have this underground far left group that's using lingo from the 1960s. I mean, this is stuff that the Weathermen used when they were trying to take down, Nixon and his government for the Vietnam War. So it's like, well, is it really set in the present, or is it supposed to be set in the past, or is it one of those things where it's like a floating timeline where you're not really supposed to know when it's set, but you kind of know when it is? And it's like, well, no, I'd very much prefer you just tell us and kind of get that out of the way so we can, quote unquote, enjoy the movie. But they couldn't even give us that. It's like, it's like they want to be ambiguous, but they also want us to know what's going on. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree with you. And like I said, I really went into this because I remember seeing previews. And I'm like, it doesn't really exactly look like something I'd watch, but I'd be willing to try it out, right? I really like Leo. I like Benicio del Toro, you know, seeing Sean Penn and everything in it, you know, it was like, oh, okay, you know, maybe I'll check it out. And then it kind of just totally flew under the radar, right? And then all of a sudden, like all the buzz started to happen around it, right? And I'm like, okay, well now I have to kind of pay attention to it because now it's garnering all this attention to the point that like everywhere, everyone's like, yeah, this is the front runner for it. So I was like, okay, well, hey, I mean, I guess we got to watch it. And as I watched it, I was like, nope, did nothing for me. Absolutely did nothing for me. So
Lee, like last year when we talked about Emilia Perez, you kind of laid out what you know what the elements were in that movie that kind of made it Oscar bait. Are there any elements in this movie that you can sort of say, yeah, I can sort of see where they're following the same tactic here?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, it comes. I mean, the whole fact that they're like this revolutionary group, right, going into detention centers. I mean, that's like, you know, the political climate 101 right now. So, hey, cool, that's going to be a part of it. And, you know, I mean, that's really just, that's the problem with it too, right? That's the other thing. It's not even the main focal point of the movie, right? So you have this whole them, you know, going after, you know, going into this detention center to do stuff, right? And you kind of create this idea that, hey, we're going to be focusing on this group, right? The French 75, they're going to be doing stuff like this. And really, it's only for the first half an hour for the film because the rest of it has absolutely nothing to do with it, right? However, they definitely do keep it up with, you know, the Christmas Adventure Club. So you have to have some, you know, sprinkling of very clear racial overtones. So you're going to have that throughout the film. So, like, the whole backdrop is nothing but, like, you know, politics and everything like that. And it just, to me, it just doesn't pull it off at all, right? Because, you know, I'm here to watch an engaging story, right? So if you want to have those elements, then hey, fine, right? Show us those elements, right? That doesn't bother me at all, right? You know, you're gonna, you know, you want to tell your story, then go ahead and tell it, but don't sit here and make me as the audience watch your film, but then everything else you focus so much on kind of creating all these elements that you make the main story totally hollow. And that to me is the big problem that I have with this, and why, you know, it could sit there and it, you know, has these elements of, you know, kind of this Oscar bait idea, right? Of, you know, we have to have, you know, political stuff in there because that's going to be what everything's going to be about. But then that feels like the main part of what you want to talk about, and then the whole story played second fiddle, and then it just turns down into a whole bunch of nothing, and that's what we got.
You mean you put nothing over nothing?
So it was more focusing on virtue signaling than it was actually telling a story.
Oh, absolutely, right. And I mean, it tried to be very like tongue in cheek with it, right? Like it's trying to be like, oh, you know, we're just gonna make it so over the top that, you know, it's gonna be, you know, kind of quirky like that. But I'm like, you know what? I just want to see how these, you know, two characters interact, because really it's just Bob and Willa getting back together is the main purpose of it. And I just don't feel like anything that the movie did really made me feel good at the end that they got back together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.